Bill Shalinsky. Bill is a Crestwood resident, and he's joining us right now to talk about Proposition C down in Crestwood. Bill, how are you?
I'm doing very good. Thank you, Mr. Cox.
Yeah, well, thanks for giving us a little bit of time this afternoon. Saw the email that you'd sent in regarding this subject, and thought we'd get you on here and talk about it a little more. I was reading from the City of Crestwood's website that they're blaming growing budget deficits and increasing costs on the decision to place this tax increase on the ballot. And they said it'll help them balance the budget and limit reductions in city staff and services. And effectively, it would be 45-cent increase in the tax levy on $100. So what's your position on this, and how much money is this going to cost the average taxpayer down in Crestwood?
Sure. Here's one of the interesting things, Mark, is that as the days go by and the weeks go by, the numbers keep changing, basically coming from the city in their use of the assumed value of a home. So initially we started out with a $225,000 home, and it was going to cost about an extra $192 a year. But more importantly is the fact that I don't think people realize that they're not just talking about a real estate property tax. They are talking about a tax for personal property taxes and commercial property taxes. So ranging from a residential property tax of 181%, personal property tax 162%, and commercial property tax for 109%. And to your earlier point when you were talking about how it's going to help them, well, Mark, you and I both know what creates deficits. And it is simply that you are spending more money than you are taking in. And the fact that they are spending more money is in their control. The fact that they are not taking in money was also in their control, because they decided to hand out a TIF on that Crestwood Mall property to the tune of $25 million, saying all along two things. One was that it wouldn't hurt the Crestwood taxpayer until something got put on that property. Two was that we expected that there are going to be revenues generating off of that property beginning in 2018. Neither of which are going to happen. The TIF happened, but the developer went out and had the property reassessed to a much lower value. And as I said in my information to you, we both know that in a TIF situation, the property taxes get frozen, and in this case, at that lower reassessed value for over 23 years, the life of the TIF. And the only thing that pays that off are the revenues generated off of that property. And the developer told us that we would have certain things would be coming into that property, but as of today, as of us speaking right now, there is nothing on the board for what is going on that property. And in fact, in the last week and a half or so, we have seen signs show up for sale or lease by the Sansone Group. And Sansone is not the owner of that property. So it makes you wonder whether or not the current owner, Urban Street Group, is going to develop anything on that property. Yeah. And if it's not, there's certainly no revenues that are going to be coming from that property.
Yeah, and
so
that,
in a case like that, Mark, if your employer cut your pay, I think probably one of the first things you would do, as I would do, is I would start cutting expenses at home.
Sure.
And that is what needs to happen. You can't continue to live, your lifestyle unless you adjust it, or you're eventually going to go broke. And that's currently what the city's doing. And interestingly, even with the tax increase, when we get to the year 2018, guess what? We run out of money again. So what are we going to do in 2018 when expenses overtake revenues again? Because there's still nothing coming from that mall property.
Is that what it says? Even with the tax increase, this would only fund them through 2018?
Yes, that is in part of their insert that they sent out in the South County Times. Their insert shows a couple graphs in there. One is the current forecast. It says large deficit. And then the forecast with Prop C, revenues and expenditures closely matched. But if you look at that graph, in 2018, the lines cross again, so you're at break even, but then expenses overtake revenues. So it doesn't solve the problem for the long term. The only thing that's going to solve the problem long term is reducing the expenditures. And I also want to make clear that this particular tax increase is strictly for the general fund. And the general fund funds the employees. And right now we know that they have attributed, because again the numbers change, anywhere between 75% and 77% of the overall cost of the general fund is for the employees' salaries and their new pay plan that they have.
And they've had a freeze on pay hikes for a while, and have they already cut some staff or not?
No, not recently. In fact, a number of years ago, yes, they did cut some staff. However, when they speak about we've had some turnover in our department, that is true. However, what we have seen happen is that we've had some very highly qualified people leave because they could no longer work under the conditions that they were working under, which was basically doing their job very well. And they have hired in other people. Of course, when you're hiring in new people, typically you are hiring them in at a lower rate, right?
Right, yeah, that's true.
So it would seem overall, yes, our costs have gone down, the number of employees have gone down, but they're talking about a period of over 17 years, 16, 17 years. Of course you're going to have ups and downs in the number of employees. Plus, with the closure of the mall, at one time you were fully staffed with a police and fire department that would take care of the mall. So you haven't had a mall for a few years now, so I would expect numbers to go down anyway.
We're talking to Bill Shalinsky, and he's with the Crestwood Citizens Against Proposition C. So let me ask this: if you're a taxpayer in Crestwood and Prop C passes and Prop P passes, you're going to be getting hit from both sides there, correct?
Yes, and in two ways. One is, and these are all city numbers. I did a presentation in front of the Gravois Township Republican Committee. I was asked to tap on the shoulder at the last minute, and that's when I really got immersed in this stuff. And by the city's numbers from the Board of Aldermen, we find out that on average, a family of two, if both propositions pass, they can expect, and I'm not saying Prop P shouldn't pass, I'm just saying you need to be aware there are two tax measures on the ballot when you go vote. It is going to cost a family of two an extra $340 per year, and a family of four, $500 per year. That's element number one. Element number two, Mark, is, as I'm sure you're aware of, this is a reassessment year. So any numbers that they are projecting their numbers off of are going to be low, because right now, area code 63126, Crestwood, is one of the hottest real estate markets in the country because of the Lindbergh School District. My house I purchased in 2009 for $141,000. A year ago, the house next to me, same style house, went for $160,000. A house at the end of the block, same style house with a little bit of work like a granite top or whatever.
Right.
Went on the market for $219,000 and sold for $199,000.
Wow, I see why the housing market's hot. Yeah, prices have
right.
gone up.
So, but the properties almost are getting snapped up again, which I would have never expected when we lived here, because we moved in shortly after the 2008 financial crisis.
Right.
And we saw our property values drop, and I thought, oh, well, this was a big mistake. Plus, the mall was closing, so that wasn't a good thing. However, right now it looks like, wow, I made a pretty smart bet if I were ready to sell my house.
Bill,
but
as I look at this, my thought is one of the criticisms of Prop P is that it does throw $45 million into the county coffers that are supposed to be used only for law enforcement, but there's no provision in there saying that the county can't then take money away that they were putting into law enforcement and move it somewhere else. So it may not end up being a $45 million increase. Now, my suspicion is the money that goes to local municipalities, and some of it would come to Crestwood, would be the same situation. That money is supposed to be used for law enforcement, but there's nothing to prevent Crestwood from taking money it now uses for law enforcement and using it somewhere else.
Mark, you are absolutely correct. I was at another meeting where Chief John Bellmer was talking about Prop P, and one of the things that one of the people that were attending asked was that very question, and his term was supplant. There is no provision that prevents a given municipality from supplanting that money and diverting it basically away from safety services into any other kind of service or any other use.
Right.
So there is no mechanism to keep track of it. There's no audit mechanism. There's no legal mechanism.
People just need to get involved like you are and make sure that their voices are heard. I mean, if it ends up passing, you got to go to City Hall to the meetings and make sure that your voice is heard about those things. Bill Shalinsky,
Right.
listen, I appreciate your time. Have you guys set up a website or anything like that?
No. We do not. And in fact, Mark, as I had indicated, we're a very small grassroots organization.
Okay.
So I think right now I'm operating with a $5 surplus. So
good for you. At least you're on budget, right? That's a good thing. Yep.
Right.
All right, Bill. Well, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mark.
Absolutely. Yep. Just as with all these things, educate yourself and then make your decision. You just have the facts. The city clearly has its facts printed on the website. You can go look at them. So feel free to do that. All right, quick break, 314-969-9797. I'm going to tell you what's going on at some airports around the country right now, being paid for by another country. Isn't that great? We'll talk to you about it when we come back. Stick around.